introducing my friend Helen Morton. Helen has got a background in the aged care area, but probably more famous in WA. She was Minister for Mental Health Services, a very prominent minister who really has a long history of caring for community. And with her husband now, she's operating a farm. I think it's a horse stud in this little town of Pingelly. It's about an hour and a half out of Perth, town of around, 1,000 to 1,200 people, a town I've always loved, a town that's a strong wheat growing town, but a town that actually has so many assets. And above all, it's got so many great community builders who really want to live their days in Pingelly. They don't want to leave. And particularly as they age, they don't want to age alone. They want to age together and retain it. And Helen has moved in and has become really the catalyst for getting this town to say, you know what, you've got all these amazing assets that would enable people to age well here.
Well, thanks very much, Peter. And of course, we've got a lot to thank you for in terms of the work that you did with us on this project. It started. Look, this staying in place is the name of our, I'll just have to remember to do that. Yeah, okay, so staying in place is the name of our project, and it's really designed, as you'd already said, to enable older people or people with a disability to stay living at home in Pingelly or the surrounding districts until the end of life, even if they need care to a nursing home level. And this is a typical problem in small rural communities. Currently, we've got no hospital, although we have a very good modern health centre here in Pingelly, no aged care residential facility, and very few, very sparse home care services available. But it's taken over 2 years to develop this model, write the business case with a cost-benefit analysis, and to demonstrate the social, financial and economic benefits of this model. And of course, we've been assisted by various consultants along the way. Currently, people leave town when they need care services, not available here, or when they think they may need them in the future. Sometimes splitting couples and taking people away from family, friends and neighbours who look out for them. Central to the model is the development of the Pingelly Virtual Village, with all the benefits of a lifestyle village or a retirement village, but staying in your own home. So you see some of the beautiful pictures of Pingelly. It's a beautiful town established in the late 1800s. It has a smallish population, but it is the people that make that difference to this community. It's a farming, wheat and sheep, or cropping and sheep area predominantly, with a really strong, proud history of community investment in the community. I don't want to talk about some of these slides at the moment because you won't know what they are until I get to it. But this is some of the businesses. This is the pharmacy, the IGA, the butcher, and various businesses and community groups in Pingelly getting behind the project of living the life in Pingelly and giving ageism the boot. It's our campaign. This is the launch of our campaign, and this is in our wonderful new facility called the Pingelly Recreation and Cultural Centre. And this is the group of people who came together with us to help launch the campaign that we're involved in now. And these slides are about the planning work that has been done with our partner, the University of Western Australia, to ensure that everything that we do is properly evaluated, properly reviewed, and will be made available to other small communities who may want to do similar work as us. So a little bit now about the project itself. Our pilot area is the white section. Our pilot area spans 4 local government authorities: Pingelly, Wickerpin, Wandering and Caballing, and across a reasonably large rural area in WA's wheatbelt. All of the coloured area, the blue, the green, makes up the whole of the wheatbelt. So in the Pingelly area is what I'm calling our pilot area, is 6,433 square kilometres. but a very small population of 2,913 with a median age of 50. More than 25% of the people are over 65, and this is growing faster than any metro area, the metro areas, and faster than any urban or regional areas in Western Australia. But this is the same across the whole of the wheatbelt. So just looking at that wheatbelt area completely now, the wheatbelt area in Western Australia is twice the size of Tasmania, and it's more than half the size of Victoria, but still only has a total population of 76,394 people. And this population is highly dispersed evenly throughout that entire wheatbelt. There's 200 towns, there's 41 local government areas, and the largest town only has 4,300 people. And as such, these communities grow these amazing, strong community spirits with proud, very productive people, and they identify and connect very strongly with their own community. This wheat belt produces 41% of the state's total gross value in agricultural commodities. It is very difficult to service the wheat belt. The previous minister, federal minister for ageing, told us that the wheat belt of Western Australia was the hardest area to provide services to. The traditional models of aged care do not work here, and they require a critical mass of people in few locations, but it is absolutely perfect for what we have in mind here in our model. So why do we need something? Well, people want to stay in their own homes. We've had surveys just in our area, pilot area. We've had surveys across the whole of the wheat belt, but more importantly, the Royal Commission into Aged Care Standards and Quality has come out and said people actually want to stay in their own homes, connected to community, family and friends and life until end of life. They don't want to go to residential facilities if they can get out of it. In this wheatbelt town, we have and similarly in other wheatbelt towns, we have a very high volunteering rate out of necessity. 29% of people volunteer versus 19% in the metro, and it's spread across all aspects of our living here in Pingelly, which we couldn't have these things if volunteers didn't do them. The SES, the AMBOs, the fire brigade, the Shire councillors, our transport, our newspaper, sports, men's club, book clubs, you name it, it's all done by volunteering. And government-funded services are very, very sparse. There's no public transport, there's no short-term restorative care. So people who are involved in aged care would recognise that as a major deficit. There's no transition care, again in aged care. There's no national Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flexible aged care. There's no LAC for people with disability. There's no respite services, and there's no carer support services. So we have come up with a model that we believe can change all of this. We have very poor aged care services in terms of quantity. In December 2018, when we first started doing this project, the Commonwealth Home Support Program had 219 people on the waiting list and only 7 people receiving a service. So what is it about this Pingelly virtual village? Well, just to tell you, there is a virtual village movement globally. We didn't invent it. We didn't know about it until we were already on our journey. And it started in the US with over, and I'm pretty sure Peter Kenyon might correct me if I've got this a little bit wrong, but there's over 400 hubs there now, and they are operating in almost every continent. And there are 4 only established or emerging in Australia. Every one of these 400 or whatever hubs are different. They are made to suit the particular needs of each community that they serve. But the one thing they all have in common is that they support older people to live and age well in their own homes. Ours will be open to all ages and family groups. We think that this builds in promotion and positive ageing, health and wellbeing over the life journey, and builds in intergenerational participation, and in itself preventing ageism. And we need all ages to make it work in our community. And like others, we'll ensure that we provide opportunities for members to maintain a healthy body, active mind, friendships, belonging to community, help with small and large tasks, and in particular for us, advocate for and connect people to local funded services, which are in the process of being developed, I might add. But we won't duplicate anything that is already existing, but we'll build on and bring them into our way of operating, building on community assets and natural networks and local business opportunities. And of course, with most virtual villages, we're developing a coordinated, vetted and trusted volunteer network and a buddy system where we encourage members to ask another member first, to share information, help and look out for all. And there is ample opportunity for people to share their gifts in the village. What is unique about the Pingelly Virtual Village is that we intend to start working with a very strong, enthusiastic, proactive and knowledgeable concierge service, welcoming, promoting, supporting and coordinating the village activities. The concierge service will be a strong advocate for members, a social connector. We ensure that members will never feel lonely or isolated, and that we'll be able to enrich the quality of the lives of members. And of course, the concierge will always remain alert to feedback and out using our monitoring systems for possible risks and be ready to initiate any action if required. The concierge service will also be a very strong advocate for and connect members to local housing options. Most communities are pretty good at getting their senior housing in place, but where they fall down is that they're not so good with options for respite, for dementia, for palliative care and for culturally appropriate housing in that process. But what we will do is also undertake approvals and arrangements for local place-based respite, such as people have already offered their private homes as part of that. Equally, we'll be putting in place the palliative care options. We have facilities that we're using for that. And we will advocate for and connect people to local dementia-friendly options with advanced health directives, with technology options, ethical considerations, and increased general and specific community awareness of what it's like to live with dementia in Pingelly. And I might just add that on the 10th of September, we have our first workshop and community information session on living with dementia in community in Pingelly. We'll also advocate for and connect people to specialist dementia behaviour management advice, because we feel very strongly that, you know, in our process, staying in place means staying in place for people even with advancing dementia. Our technology will be used to wrap our community around our people, not take the place of person-to-person contact. And we've started to build this digital literacy in the community with the University of WA and using our important intergenerational links. Our technology will help us to ensure that people are not isolated and will not be lonely. We'll be using a tool from the UK sponsored by the University of WA called Genie, which is like a social mapping tool. But we'll also be using a university sponsored app called Spark, which is from Poland, and it creates like a digital marketplace for small acts of kindness. And this builds in intergenerational connections. I'd love somebody to ask me some questions about that afterwards, because I'd like to talk about it. But we're also using IntelliCare, which is a state government sponsored smart home technology with motion sensors throughout the home, mapping and monitoring client activity, and any change to the routine sends alerts. And so there's constant feedback day and night and prompts if people need them. And just some examples: a man went out the back door, didn't come in within a reasonable time. It was 40 degrees heat. And so his neighbours were alerted, and of course he was found outside. He'd fallen over and couldn't get up. A lady who's legally blind let us know when we visited that the little red light beeping over her bedroom door at night time gives her great peace of mind, and she calls it her guardian angel, knowing that somebody is looking in on her and that she's safe. A person who was not sleeping well and seemed very tired, it became clear that she was getting up 15 to 20 times a night, and she had a urinary tract infection, and that of course was picked up and able to be sorted out. These are just some of the technology assists that we'll be using. An important aspect of this is that the Pingelly Virtual Village is not about building buildings. It's about building community capacity. We're not building any fences or any walls or any buildings or anything. This is about building community capacity. And that's a two-pronged approach. First, it's about building general community awareness, understanding and knowledge of what it takes for older people to have an enriched life in Pingelly. And of course, that has started with the Ageism campaign. The second is about building our own local workforce. Other providers have said the reason they don't provide those services in Pingelly is because we are what's referred to as a thin market. The work is not sufficiently consistent or intense enough to warrant them locating people here full-time, and as such, people have to go away to access those services, and so the vicious cycle continues. What we're going to do is build our own local workforce, including Cert 3 and Cert 4 carers, allied health assistants, and that's starting with a community asset and skills audit, some local scholarships and some training packages that have already been negotiated. The concierge will then link people who are eligible for funded services such as packages, plans, the short-term restorative care, the transition care, etc., to local workers who can be contracted by approved service providers, and now they will be able to provide those services because they'll have local people who are happy to do 2 half-days a week as well as keep the farm going, or 3 days a week as well as look after their own children, etc. So we are a community that is underemployed, and all we need to find is a way to provide those people with the short-term casual employment that they're looking for. And so we're seeking this to be a regional demonstration model. The University of WA will fully evaluate and report on our model so that it can be utilised elsewhere. And communities across the wheatbelt, and I'm certain it's across other small rural communities as well, are calling out for solutions to keep older people who need higher levels of support in their community. How can they keep them in the community? They can usually build the houses for people to live in, but then they struggle to find a way to enable them to stay. As I said at the beginning, this model has been fully evaluated, fully costed, and a cost-benefit analysis done. And this cost-benefit analysis on our model was done by the RPS group in Queensland. They actually have quite a lot of experience with aged care models, but had also done some work in the wheatbelt of Western Australia. They looked at the quantitative and qualitative social, economic and financial benefits of the model. The cost-benefit ratios of the model are all above 2.5, even when discounting by 3%, 7% or 10% for increased costs. Investment in the Pingelly Virtual Village shows a positive return by more than 2.5 times the investment. RPS Group in themselves made the comment that the most important benefits they could not quantify. They relate to the social and humanitarian benefits of ending the heartache and pain of being forced to leave family, friends and community, and by ending the loneliness and the disconnection experienced when forced into another place, into another town or into another place. If people can choose to stay in their own place until end of life, they end this loneliness and disconnection. And I'll just reiterate again that people just want to be able to stay in the community that they identify with, that they love, amongst their neighbours and often lifelong friends who look out for them and close to their families. I've got a couple of testimonials here that I'm just going to quickly show you. Helen Wright is the daughter of a Pingelly lady who lives alone and who wants to stay in her own home in Pingelly. Helen lives about 3 hours away on another farm. We installed IntelliCare, and Helen gets a minute-by-minute digital reading about her mother's activity and an alert if anything unusual happens. Helen can either contact neighbours or can contact the concierge service or Silverchain, who are a service provider in town, and we can be at Helen's mum's place within 5 minutes. Senator Linda Reynolds, who is now our Defence Minister, makes the comment about people not having to leave home to get all levels of care that they might need, and we think of our model as a bit of a disruptive technology. It's a bit like Uber to the taxi industry or Airbnb to the holiday accommodation industry. Well, the Pingelly Virtual Village is a little bit of a disruptive technology to the traditional way of providing aged care services using residential facilities. Just going to some more testimonials. The Shire of Pingelly are very supportive to what we're doing with both the President and Vice President on our management committee, and have been so for more than 3 years whilst the model was developed. So there is strong support in this community to make this happen. Regional Development Australia makes the point that keeping our older people in our community creates good economic and social opportunities, whereas some people might think that it's a burden, but it's actually the opposite. Our state and federal MPs are very supportive. Both say that finding a solution to ensure that older people can stay living in the community is one of the highest priority issues that they are constantly facing when they visit communities across the wheatbelt.